So I'm an artist and I work in the prison system in the state of Connecticut. I organize and facilitate workshops in the prisons, exhibitions both in the prisons and in the community, encouraging people in the prisons to make artwork that's unique to them, to consider themselves and the direction of their lives while they're in prison, to make work that's unique to them, that only exists because they exist, to be open to see where that artwork goes. And then I share that work within the prison, out in the community, and share that work with the families of the artists working in the prison. I've been working with the Prison Arts Program for 28 years, since 1991. My work is focused in the state of Connecticut, in the prisons in the state of Connecticut. When I started doing this work, there were 21 prisons in the state of Connecticut. There are 15 prisons, I think now, a lot of prisons, a lot of people in prison just in the state of Connecticut. We publish work that gets into prisons all over the country, but we really don't have the capacity and the resources to provide programming outside of the state of Connecticut. So it's really a project that's focused on the state of Connecticut and just begins to address the needs within the prisons, within our own state. It's a very small program. This Prison Arts Program is part of Community Partners in Action, which is a really large, incredible agency that does all types of work in the community and has been doing this since 1875, 145 years ago. I hope I got my math right. I'm the manager of the program. I provide most of the instruction in the facilities. I hire artists as I'm able to hire artists. I have visiting artists come into the prisons to share their experience being an artist, not just the work of making art, but how to live as an artist and how it applies to everyday life. And then I hire artists coming out of the prison and work with artists that are doing community service work in a large warehouse in the north end of Hartford to prepare artwork for exhibitions. But hopefully, I'm trying to develop the program so that we have a lot of people working on it. But for the most part, it's me, yeah. Ideally, the Prison Arts Program would be a project that's going on in all the prisons and generates an annual show. We do this massive annual show, other than the rodeo art show that's down in Louisiana, a rodeo art show they have down there. It's the largest exhibition of art from the prison system that happens annually. But my vision of the program would be that the armory in the state in Hartford, the state armory, this massive space, would be filled with thousands and thousands of artworks from thousands of artists within the prisons, and it would become a huge part of what our community is, and that you'd have hundreds of people working in the prison system, and you'd have internship programs going on with all secondary schools throughout the state of Connecticut. I think there's an incredible opportunity in prison to provoke constructive endeavors. And the benefit of doing it within the prison, within those incarcerated in prison, within those staffing the prisons, and the benefit it has on the outside community, on the loved ones of people in prison, but just the general public, to witness this work, this really staggering, unique, meaningful, thoughtful, revelatory work is of such substantial benefit to everyone in the state of Connecticut. It's a benefit to legislators making decisions about how to organize, our prisons, or answers to address serious issues of criminal justice. But it's also beneficial to artists, to get them to see sincere work that's made by people that can't help but make it because of who they are, where they are in that moment. And I think those are things that get lost. And then I think that the impact of the work on the community as a whole to encourage empathy, but also just to get people to understand how complicated the world is, how complicated people are, how complicated we are, as individuals, the work encourages that immediately. Witnessing the work, considering where this work came from, encourages people to really start to think about how complicated it all is, and that these decisions about other people are not so simple. So, yeah, that's a lot of what we would hope would happen, and what does happen with the work, right there. Yeah, there are a million challenges. I mean, I would say the main challenge of organizing any arts project, probably anywhere, probably here at Eastern Connecticut State University or in a prison or anywhere, is the stereotypes that people carry with them. The stereotypes of what art is and what art could be and how you would approach art, that art's this thing that's out here that I need to learn the rules and regulations of, versus art being this ambiguous endeavor that comes from inside you. I think that that's the most difficult thing right there, is just confronting in the prison. People have the stereotypes of themselves, the stereotype of what art could be, and how it could be pertinent to their lives. Obviously, it's this incredibly restrictive environment, the prison. The security issues are paramount. What's going to happen with this pencil that comes into this prison? What's going to happen with this artwork in the prison, and what's going to happen to this artwork when it leaves the prison? And does this artwork communicate some secret message? That could be something to consider, that you have to be careful of. So there's all these other things to be mindful of within a prison that you might not be mindful of teaching art in a university. But I would say there's no difficulty identifying dynamic students that really want to take on these endeavors and want to learn and take on rigorous activities. You'll never find a better student than a student in prison. So the selling of artwork is a very delicate situation. And I'd say 30 years ago, the Department of Correction and the CPA developed a system to allow for the sale of work in these annual shows. 60% of the sale price goes to the artist, 25% goes to a fund to mail the artwork home at the end of the shows. So it's a way to get this artwork to the families. The artists are enabling that to happen, which I think is wonderful. It doesn't cover all of the postage, but it covers most of the postage, and we mail this artwork home, signature confirmation, beautiful packages that we make. And then 15% goes to the Commission on Victim Services on behalf of the artists, that they're giving funds to the Victims' Compensation Fund. But the sales are minimal, and that's not the focus of the program. And it's the thing that could unravel the program at any moment, is why is this person making money off their crime? They're not. We're trying to dignify these constructive endeavors and give people the tools to make art in the future and to validate their work. But me personally, I'm trying to encourage people to make documents of these revelations that occur while they're in the prison, and for them to see that there's no amount of money that's nearly as valuable as that artwork is. So I would say, much less than half of the artwork is for sale in the show, and I would say not 5% of the work that's in the show is for sale. It's a very small aspect of the program. And it's the work in the program, it's the work in the facilities, it's sharing that work with the community. That's what the project is. So the Prison Arts Program has been in operation since 1978. So it's 42 years it's been in operation. For most of those years, it's been the only visual arts endeavor going on in the prison and going on statewide. No one was really interested in the prisons. 1978, 1985, 1995, there wasn't really anyone interested in going into the prisons or realizing how valuable it would be to bring professional arts endeavors into the prison. Now there's a lot of people coming into the prisons and a lot of schools coming into the prisons, Wesleyan going into the prisons, community colleges going into the prisons, state universities going into the prisons, Yale running art programs in the prisons. And there's this idea that maybe Yale University, Yale, is going to bring this substantial thing that would trump anything that this small social service agency that's been around since 1875 has got going on. And I'd say no, that we're not providing typical Art 101 classes that everyone's getting. They're wearing the same clothes, they're eating the same food, they're showering in the same place at the same time. Teaching people still life drawing classes or Art 101 classes is all together at the same time is sort of the opposite of what you want to do. Not that that's what everyone's doing who comes in from a university, but I would say that anything that reaffirms that art is this thing that has rules and regulations and has a traditional way of learning is probably the antithesis of what you should be doing in the prison. That rather than teach people shading exercises, get people to make drawings that they care about right away. Get people to make a drawing that they wake up at 3 in the morning to look at right away, rather than prepare people to make those drawings. Those are the drawings you start with right off the bat. And the work, and that conclusion comes from 42 years of this program being in operation and considering who we're working with and where we're working with them. So to me, this program is invaluable. I think it embraces these ambiguous endeavors that grow and evolve in directions that we wouldn't imagine. And I think that it could only continue to grow and evolve. Someday, there won't be prisons. There will be some other way to address crime. And hopefully, those ways that address crime will reduce crime to a point where the number of people that will need to be restricted from the community will continue to shrink. And so there will be other ways of addressing crime, but also addressing the need for work, for providing an opportunity within a closed environment and a window from that environment into the outside world. Hopefully it'll end. Hopefully we won't need the prison arts program. But I would imagine it'll keep going for a long time. It's a jewel of the state of Connecticut. And I think it's a model for projects and programs, other programs within the state of Connecticut and throughout the country. There are programs going on throughout the country of different sizes and with different focus. This is the only program, other than I would say the work that goes on through the William James Association in the state of California, that's been going on for so long, that's become so ingrained within the prison system, that works in full collaboration with the Department of Correction. The Prison Arts Program is part of Community Partners in Action that helped develop the idea of a Department of Correction. So we're not coming from the outside. We are part of the prison system in many ways. And so the level of access, the level of trust, the level of collaboration between the Prison Arts Program and the Department of Correction is one of the particular aspects that's unique to the Prison Arts Program. The size of the exhibition, the liberty with which the artists have to communicate, the lack of censorship for the most part, is one unique aspect, I think, of the Prison Arts Program. And the fact that artwork from the program has gotten into museums and publications throughout the world. That the scope isn't limited to the prison, but is expansive. That the work is part of the largest world, I think is another unique aspect. Another unique aspect of the Prison Arts Program is we work with people in the prison, and then we work with alumni. We work with people who've been part of the Prison Arts Program, providing them materials as soon as they get out, reminding them that hopefully right away, we don't track people down, but if they get in touch with us, and hopefully they get in touch with us right away, is to remind people that the revelations that they had in prison and the value that they held for their artistic endeavors in the prison is pertinent to their life on the outside, and assisting them to undertake those endeavors on the outside while they're also feeding children and paying the gas bill and dealing with traffic and all these things that they didn't have to deal with in the prison. And how do you apply your artistic endeavors to the outside world? And we assist artists with professional development, with materials, but I would say the most valuable way that we serve artists in the community is we prepare work for the annual show every year, And we'll have artists that have just gotten out of prison, and we'll have artists that have spent 7 years in the prison, and interns from local colleges, all working together in a warehouse, sharing this time, not in a group to talk about, how hard it is to come out of prison, but you end up talking about how hard it is to come out of prison in a casual way where you feel comfortable to communicate your concerns and people sharing solutions. And that this warehouse, where we're cutting plexiglass to make, an exhibition, is where people learn how to successfully navigate life out of prison, is a wonderful and valuable aspect of our work. Yeah. A lot of people in the prison will say, Jeff, let me see your art. A lot of my art now is the work that I'm doing in the prison. I'd love to just sit at my kitchen table and make my time-intensive drawings that I make, that are sort of my little penance, 1,000 hours in a piece of paper. But one lesson that I've learned, I'm a musician, I've had various psychedelic rock and roll bands and traveled around the world performing in those bands. One of the great lessons that I've taught myself by teaching in the prisons, one of the things I say is that you don't walk down the street, you don't walk down the halls of the prison and think, there's a great idea, there's a great song. You have to sit, you have to put the time in at the piano, with the guitar, with the pencil, in order to make great work. That you have to be regularly keeping your artistic endeavors in the forefront of your mind. 10 minutes a day is fine, not once every month, not when the whim hits you. You have to put the time in. And when I do that, I'll write 10, 20 songs over the course of a month that I'm blown away with, so I listen to myself. I take my own medicine in that way. But at the same time, the work in the prisons does consume a lot of the time that maybe I would, devote to my own endeavors, which at some point I'll do. I'll be selfish and I'll sit in my own little studio doing my thing. But for now, my studio is 15 prisons in the state of Connecticut. I would say for any student in college and university, any student, learn as much as you can about as much as you can. Don't focus on a specific endeavor. Widen your perspective, and then anything that you learn or any pursuit that you take can become your work. And pursue things that you're interested in, rather than things that you think are important because other people think they're important. Don't try to make work that's valuable. Try to make work that you care about, and then be open to see where it goes. I think that that's the number one lesson for students. When you're in school, you're trying to make great work right away, and you're trying to make work that other people think is important, and you're trying to make work that relates to work that you've already seen that you think is important. That's a mistake. That's a mistake to go in that direction. Trust what you're interested in, whether other people think it's important or not. I think that would be my advice, my incredibly invaluable advice for someone in school.